we're around about 170 miles into another very successful 200-mile drive, and I just mesmerised by how fantastic this particular car is. It's approaching, you know, what is it, 37 years old, and they're just so capable. Yes, they're a big commitment. Well, actually, they're a colossal commitment, but they're just so capable, and never fails to amaze me how hard you can use these cars. I do get asked quite a lot. I have actually, it mainly comes through my other site. It's called Bespoke Addict. Yeah, it's largely about my bespoke shoe and suit collection. It's got a huge amount of followers, and I get asked a lot, mostly through that site, about buying one of these cars. And you know, people they're perhaps a bit naive. They're keen on the shoes and they're keen on the suits, and then they notice that they have one of these cars as well, and they're asking, you know, what are they like, and should I buy one, that type of thing. And I'll be honest with you, I always sort of discourage such behaviour. It's ludicrous. You've really got to want something like this. It's an absolutely monumental commitment, running something like this as a daily transport. I've ran them every day since 1988, I think, so an awful long time. So I'm well and truly used to the mammoth cost. And moreover, you know, I'm just used to being able to, I've learned how to repair them myself. So obviously, if you haven't got very deep pockets, you do need to have quite a lot of knowledge and be extraordinarily committed. So it's a difficult question, really, when people say, is it a good idea, should I buy one? And you know, I love mine so much, I can't actually live without them. I've tried, and it's a miserable experience. I just can't be without one. And to then sort of advise other people not to buy one, it just seems a little bit sage. But the truth is, it's approaching a 40-year-old car, and they have a limited value. Even the very best, the ones in the most perfect condition, ideally, when I say perfect, they're ideally very low mileage cars that have just never been restored and never needed to be restored, and just been sympathetically maintained. They tend to sort of have an asking price of in the region of about £15,000. But if I'm honest with you, they don't really sell at that price. They struggle to sell. You can buy one of these for, like, you know, £5,000 or £6,000, which is actually danger territory. It'll probably be very rusty, very worn out, and you know, a bit of a mess, quite frankly. And you know, at the £5,000 or £6,000 mark, you are looking at a car that needs a complete restoration. You know, conservatively, a restoration of such a car it would be anywhere in the region of 30,000 upwards, as much as 50, maybe 60,000 to be done properly. Now that seems an extraordinarily high figure, but there's a massive amount to do. And you know, when I say restoration, I'm not talking, you know, people sort of sell so-called restored cars, and they've quite honestly had nothing more than perhaps a quick service and a steam clean, a load of thick underseal applied to the underneath, and then maybe a bit of filler applied to the bodywork and a cheap respray. In short, they've been bodged to the back end of nowhere, and very quickly they're going to fall apart. You know, restoring a car properly, something of this vintage and this sort of complexity, it is a £30,000 to £50,000 commitment. But you're then left with a car that at best, you know, is worth £15,000 at the moment in today's climate. Given time, that will climb dramatically. You know, the Mark IIs, you know, the earlier model, like Inspector Morse drives around it, you know, they are now in the region of sort of 35,000, 40,000 perhaps. And yeah, they're extremely nice, a lot older than this, and obviously a lot rarer. But even so, as you can see, if the car's worth 35,000 to 40,000, you know, it's kind of hard to justify buying the vehicle, then spending 35,000 to 40,000 on a restoration. E-types are altogether different. They are the cheapest E-types, are around about £75,000. And you know, some of the better and more desirable are upwards of £500,000. But that would have a similar restoration cost to this vehicle, it's very similar mechanically, if not the same. And they're actually got less body panels than this car. So, you know, you can justify spending 30, 50,000 on a restoration there. So these things they're very, very difficult at this age. This car I've got is very original. It's been looked after, but yes, it needs an awful lot of work, and I am slowly doing that work over a period of a year or two. But ultimately, within a year or two, this car will have been very extensively restored by myself. I'll be doing the work. So, you know, I'll have put in hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of hours, and spent, you know, quite a lot of money, a few £1,000s on parts, but it will be justifiable financially. So it is a difficult one, and yeah, I think if you're not used to old cars, you can be naive and come as a bit of a shock, you know, how difficult these things can be to maintain and drive. And of course they do need to be driven. You can't just sort of put it in a garage and bring it out very occasionally. You know, that's one of the very worst things that could happen to such a car. You know, they need to be driven. It's very much like you know, the human body. It needs exercise. It needs, you can't just sit in a chair and do nothing. You get fat and ill very quickly. And it's very much similar with a car, particularly with a large engine like this. They need to be used. So these vast mileages that I'm doing with mine, I'm convinced I'm not doing it any harm whatsoever. You know, I service it fanatically, and I never ever rev it hard. I never take it above 3,000 revs, which is, it's just under 3,000 revs at the moment, but we're doing 70 miles per hour on the motorway. And you know, that's sort of 60% of its available power. I've still got 40% in reserve. It's not being pushed. You know, if you push them hard and rev them hard through the gears, you'll wreck it very, very quickly. But no, they are capable of extraordinary high mileages, but they're a massive liability. And much though I adore them, I don't generally encourage other people to buy them. When people ask, I try to talk them out of it, if that doesn't sound selfish. The best option, quite frankly, is to buy the later generation. It's called the X300. It looks quite similar to this car. It's modelled on this car, but it's a different generation altogether of engineering. The oldest ones are about 20-21 years old, and they're just engineered beautifully. They're just a different level of engineering altogether. They're built to modern standards, and they're just great cars, and they look quite a lot like this one. They feel quite a lot like this one, and they even sound a bit like this one. So yeah, for somebody that just wanted this sort of image, that would be the one to go for. There's no real need to go for the older car like this that, quite frankly, is going to be you know, I'm being polite here, you know, well, it's going to be difficult. It's you've really got to have very deep pockets, or just be very committed and have a massive amount of knowledge. That's you know, I love this one, but you know, I'm fully prepared for its vast level of commitment, and I can never see me parting with it, if I'm truthful with you. So yeah, just never underestimate, you know, the running costs of such a thing. If you're not used to an old car, even a small old car, they're very thirsty, and something with a 4 litre plus engine like this, the fuel costs are truly eye-watering if you're not used to it. At best, this car does 15 to the gallon, but realistically an average of around about 12 is about normal. Now, yeah, that is quite a hefty fuel consumption alone, and you know, by the time you've paid for fuel like that, is there any money left in the kitty for maintenance and servicing and repairs? So you know, that's the thing. You know, when you're looking at buying a car for £7,000 or £10,000, it's within the reach of a lot of people that are looking for a cheap classic, but of course they're just not prepared for the full sort of gravity of how expensive and complex they are to run. So, but if you fancy one of these things, an old Jaguar, do have a look at the later generation. I think they came from around about 1994 to about 1997. It's still called an XJ6. It's the X300, and they're really wonderful things. I've had one myself, and I truly loved it. You know, it was a great car, but if I'm honest with you, I've had these earlier models for simply too long, and I'm too attached to them, and the extra level of aggravation, commitment and cost is worth it to myself. But I would be honest with you, if you've never driven one of these things, you wouldn't really know what you were missing, and you'd be more than satisfied with the later car. They're truly wonderful, and it's not unrealistic to get 25 miles to the gallon from the later car, and it drives very similar to this, but yeah, they're just engineered to a different standard from a different time. You know, this has an engine. This car engine was first went into production in 1948. And you know, so it was a very, very old engine in the 80s when it was put into this car. But no, the sensible option is to buy the later generation that sort of has a similar feel. But, anyway, I'm rabbiting a bit here, so I'm just on a long journey. I'm trying to kill a little bit of time perhaps, but it's been another very successful journey, and I'll make another video soon.